understand when we talk about our environment? In layman terminologies, environment will be our surroundings, right? Every living or non-living organism around us will be included in our environment. Correct? As we all know, cell is the structural and the functional unit of our body. It builds up to form tissues, which combine to form different organs, organ systems, and the entire body. Different type of individuals come together to form population, the species, and ultimately the biosphere. These were the different levels of organization of the living world. So our environment includes all these levels of organization, starting from the smallest, that is the cell, to the entire biosphere. Now let us have a look at the term population. What do we mean by population? So please write down the groups of organisms of the same species that share the common attribute, or those have the common characteristics and are isolated from other groups, constitute the population. Right? The group of organisms of the same species that share some common attribute and are somewhat isolated from other groups are called the population. Have you understood this clearly? Any doubts? Now we'll see what is an ecosystem. An ecosystem is a self-contained and a distinct entity. It contains community of organisms and their environment. Ecosystem can be of different types, like a forest, a desert, mountains, lakes, rivers, and seas. This is an example of an ecosystem. So, from this example, what do we understand? What all things are included in the ecosystem? Is it only the living beings or even the non-living matters? Any guesses, anyone? An ecosystem includes both the living and the non-living components. Right? The living components of an ecosystem are called the biotic components, and the non-living ones are called the abiotic components. Is it clear? So please write it down. The abiotic components of an ecosystem are all the non-living matter and the organic substances. The non-living matter and the inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, nitrogen, oxygen, water, phosphorus, and other elements present in them constitute the abiotic components, whereas all the living components included of all the organisms, plants and animals constitute the biotic components. Is it clear, everyone? See, in this ecosystem, we have all the living organisms like bacteria, protozoas, algae, insects, fungi, and the non-living components or the abiotic components like rotting log, sunlight and heat that constitute the ecosystem. Okay? Is it clear? All these ecosystems are extremely pure and healthy. But human beings have known to constantly add their waste to the ecosystem or the environment. These wastes are basically of three main types. They are the solid waste, the liquid waste, and the gaseous ones. Now, what all substances are included in the solid waste? They can be the food waste, cow dung, human excreta, or trash and rubbish. Right? Whereas the liquid waste includes sewage water and industrial effluents. The gases from various automobiles and from chimneys of industries constitute the gaseous waste. Is it clear to everyone? Any doubts till now? If you have any doubts, please let me know. Now we'll come to another important terminology, and that is the biome. What do we mean by biomes? Please write it down in your notebook. The natural ecological grouping of plants and animals on the basis of the climate. So, it is the natural ecological grouping of plants and animals on the basis of climate are called biomes. Deserts, grasslands, tropical forests, and temperate forests are examples of biomes. The biotic and the abiotic factors of the ecosystem together constitute the biosphere. If we the earth, the biosphere is divided into 4 regions. The lithosphere, please write it down. The biosphere can be divided into 4 regions. The lithosphere, which contains the land surface or the soil. The hydrosphere, which includes the water bodies. Atmosphere, including air, and living organisms like plants and animals. I repeat, the 4 constituents of biosphere around the surface of the earth include lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and the living organisms. As we can see, the land includes lithosphere, water bodies include hydrosphere, air includes atmosphere, and living organisms together constitute the biosphere. Is it clear to everyone? Any doubts till now? Okay. Then we come to another important term called the food chain. What do we exactly mean by a food chain? Can anyone tell me? Anyone? Any idea? So please write it down in your notebooks. The definition of food chain: the sequence of living organisms in a community in which one organism consumes another organism to transfer food energy is called a food chain. I repeat, the sequence of living organisms in a community in which one organism consumes another organism to transfer food energy is called a food chain. The energy can be transferred from one organism to another through this food chain. Okay? And this transfer of energy is unidirectional. Okay? It is only in one direction. Is it clear, everyone? Let us now see the organisms that are involved in a food chain. The first organisms are the producers or the autotrophs. Self suggests these, being autotrophs, prepare their own food. Which organisms prepare their own food? Being plants, right? By which process is the food produced? By the process of photosynthesis. And where is it produced? It is produced in chloroplast. Right? So the organisms that prepare their own food constitute the producers or the autotrophs. Then we have the consumers or the heterotrophs. These are the organisms that are dependent on others for their food. All the animals are consumers as they are dependent on the producers or the autotrophs for food. Here, the consumers or the heterotrophs. Next we have the decomposers or the saprophytes. These are the organisms that consume the dead remains of other organisms, like bacteria and fungi, act as decomposers. So, the organisms that consume the dead remains of other organisms act as decomposers. Producers, consumers and decomposers. कभी आपने देखा है एक कैट एक माउस को प्रे करती है या माउस प्रे करता है फ्रॉग पे? Can you guess what level of organization a cat or a mouse belongs to? Any guesses? This is a very simple question, right? Very good. They belong to the consumers. Its further classification we'll be seeing in the next session. So अभी तक हमने देखा what is the food chain and what are the organisms at different levels of food chain. We also saw that the flow of energy through food in a food chain is unidirectional. ठीक है, जैसे ये प्लांट्स हैं, प्रोड्यूसर्स हैं, अगर इनको रैट खाते हैं ये प्राइमरी कंज्यूमर्स हुए, रैट को स्नेक खाता है ये सेकेंडरी कंज्यूमर हुआ, स्नेक को आउल खाता है टर्शियरी कंज्यूमर हुआ, और जब ये सब एक्सपायर्ड हो जाते हैं तो इनकी बॉडीज डिकम्पोज की जाती हैं बाय डिकम्पोजर्स. ठीक है, डिकम्पोजर्स जो बॉडी को डिकम्पोज करते हैं वो न्यूट्रिएंट्स रिलीज करते हैं और ये न्यूट्रिएंट्स फिर से प्रोड्यूसर्स यूज करते हैं अपना फूड बनाने के लिए इन प्रेजेंस ऑफ सन. इज इट क्लियर टू एवरीवन टिल नाउ? एनी डाउट्स यू कैन प्लीज आस्क मी राइट नाउ. अभी हमने देखा फूड चेन. नाउ what do we mean by a food web? Web का मतलब क्या होता है? जाली, criss-cross connection. Okay? So please write down the definition of a food web. The interconnected food chains operating in an ecosystem which establish a new work of relationships between various species are called a food web. Is it clear? The interconnected food chain that operates in an ecosystem to establish a new work of relationships between various species is called a food web. So, जब इंटरकनेक्शन होता है फूड चेन्स का, तो न्यू वर्क ऑफ रिलेशनशिप डेवलप होता है डिफरेंट स्पीसीज के बीच में. इसको अपने बोलते हैं फूड वेब. इज इट क्लियर एवरीवन? एनी डाउट्स? Okay, now we'll have a look at the few of the questions that are discussed and asked in your examination. For example, define ecosystem and its components. तो हमने देखा what is an ecosystem, उसके examples देखे, diagram देखा, उसके components देखे, कंपोनेंट्स कौन से होते हैं वो देखा. ठीक है ना? ये एक फ्लो चार्ट भी आप ड्रॉ कर सकते हैं जिसमें दिखाया जाता है द कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ इकोसिस्टम. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, देयर आर डिफरेंट पीपल दैट फेस डिफरेंट इश्यूज. Due to increase in pollution, the people lead to the cause of depletion of fish fauna. For example, the fishermen, due to increased pollution, cause depletion of fish fauna. तो fish की जो different species हैं, वो extinct होती जाएंगी. ठीक है? इंडस्ट्रियल वेस्ट का डंपिंग होता है, फिशिंग होता है, इरिगेशन होता है, राइट? उससे जो पोल्यूटेड वाटर है वो पूल्स में, डैम्स में, हर जगह फ्लो होता है और वो पोल्यूटेड वाटर इन टर्न फिशरमैन यूज करते हैं, राइट? एंड एज ए रिजल्ट फिर से पोल्यूशन क्रिएट होता है. ठीक है? You can get this example in case of an ecosystem. Alright? Describe food chain and food web. हमने बहुत अच्छे से देखा what is a food chain, उसकी definition देखी, flow of energy देखा, उसके 3 components देखे, उनके एग्जाम्पल्स देखे, फूड चेन का डायग्राम देखा, फूड वेब की डेफिनेशन और उसका एग्जाम्पल. क्लियर है एवरीवन? व्हाट आर बायोम्स एंड बायोस्फीयर? ये भी देखा हमने. बायोम्स, उसकी डेफिनेशन, उसका एग्जाम्पल. बायोस्फीयर, उसके 4 कंपोनेंट्स, डायग्राम, है ना? क्लियर है? These are some of the questions that can be asked from this chapter. I know this is an easy chapter, but it is also important from your examination point of view. काफी बार इसमें से मल्टीपल चॉइस क्वेश्चंस भी पूछे जाते हैं बेस्ड ऑन फूड चेन्स एंड फूड वेब्स, जो काफी ट्विस्टेड होते हैं. तो इस चैप्टर को इजी समझ के इसको ओमिट मत कीजिएगा, बट प्लीज स्टडी इट थॉरली. थैंक यू.